Sea levels rise. This is taken from nationalgeographic.com. Ocean levels are getting higher. Why is this happening and what can we do to stem the tide? Looking at this picture, greenhouse gases, ice. There's an arrow from ice going into the ocean. The ocean's going up. Somebody's drowning here. A cow is farting. This person has like a spray can. Looks like bouncing of energy kind of bouncing up and down here. Why sea levels are rising. Over the past century, humans have burned lots of fossil fuels. This, along with other natural activities, has released enormous amounts of heat-trapping gases into the atmosphere. These emissions have caused the Earth's surface temperature to rise. The oceans take in most of that heat and they are getting warmer. Scientific data shows that the levels of the ocean and seas are rising. The rise in sea levels is caused by three factors, all happening because of climate change. Thermal expansion. When water heats up, it expands. About half of the past century's rise in sea level is because warmer oceans simply take up more space. Melting glaciers and polar ice caps. Large ice formations like glaciers and the polar ice caps naturally melt a bit each summer. In the winter, it snows, which usually balances out the melting. Recently, though, higher temperatures caused by climate change have led to greater than average summer melting of sea ice. This results in a lot more decrease of the ice in summer and not much increase during the winter, causing sea levels to rise. Ice loss from Greenland and West Antarctica. As with the glaciers and ice caps, increased heat is causing the massive ice sheets that cover Greenland and Antarctica to melt at an accelerated pace. Higher sea temperatures are causing the massive ice shelves that extend out from Antarctica to melt from below, weaken, and break off. Here's a picture of that. You have 1, 2, and 3. Glaciers, which are ice on mountains, melting off and going into the ocean. The ocean itself, as it warms up, it expands, just like in a thermometer. And ice sheets, like on Greenland and Antarctica, also melting, and the water is going into the ocean, adding more water to the ocean. I'm looking at this picture here. It says Oceania. Here's Australia. Tuvalu is highlighted. Here's Palau, Marshall Islands, Tahiti, Samoa and Tonga, Fiji, Vanuatu, Kiribati, Solomon Islands, New Zealand's down here. Hey, it's the Philippines too. When sea levels rise rapidly, even a small increase can be terrible for coastal habitats. When large storms hit land, higher sea levels mean bigger, more powerful storm surges that can destroy everything in their path. In addition, hundreds of millions of people live in areas that will become increasingly vulnerable or at risk to flooding. Higher sea levels force people to abandon their homes and relocate. Low-lying islands could be submerged completely. Low-lying nations further north in the Central Pacific are particularly vulnerable to sea level rise. Most of these islands are coral atolls, or ring-shaped reef islands that are only a few feet above sea level. Some communities in Kiribati, Tuvalu, and the Marshall Islands are surrounded by water at high tides. Local communities find it difficult to live during high tides. When the water rises around these islands, it can disturb graveyards, get into drinking water wells, and kill crops like breadfruit trees or taro. Even with these challenges, most people do not want to leave their families, or do not want to leave their land their families have lived on for generations. In Tokelau, a small Polynesian community north of Samoa, communities are trying to adapt to climate change. A community of about 358 residents on Whakaofo, one of Tokelau's 3 atolls, enclosed their entire islet in 5-meter-high concrete walls. It's a model of how other communities and other atoll nations might manage their land and adapt to conditions. How high will it go? Most predictions say the warming of the planet will continue and is likely to accelerate or happen faster. Oceans will likely continue to rise as well. But predicting the degree to which they will rise is not easy. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says we can expect the oceans to rise between 11 and 38 inches, or 28 to 98 centimeters. This is about 1 to 3.5 feet. By 2100, enough to swamp many of, so it will rise this much by 2100, enough to swamp many of the cities along the US East Coast, like New York and Boston. More serious estimates, including a complete meltdown of the Greenland ice sheet, place sea level rise to 23 feet, enough to submerge London. This is a little picture here of somebody sitting on a dock, and you can see how in 1900 the water was down here and it's been rising. In 2000 it's here, and estimated 2040 it could be up here.